Hello, students. Let us understand an overview of philosophy because our paper, that critical theory since 1965, has five different units of critical theory. All theories, some of the theories based on, the philosophical concepts. The first unit itself, phenomenological criticism, right? Phenomenological criticism, if we want to understand what is phenomenology, it is very, very essential to understand the basic terms of philosophy, right? To understand that, we need to understand what is philosophy, right? What are the three branches of philosophy which we have to at least understand the overview of the terms, definition of those terms. Okay, so let's start. What is philosophy? The original meaning of the word philosophy comes from the Greek roots philo, meaning love, and sophia are wisdom. So, when someone studies philosophy, they want to understand how and why people do certain things and how to live a good life. In other words, they want to know the meaning of life. So, it's very, very simple. What is the original meaning of the word philosophy? It is love or wisdom, right? So, the origin of the word, the root of the word is from Greek, right? Philo means love and Sophia is wisdom, right? So it is very, very essential to understand what is the very meaning of the word philosophy. So philosophy is a study of general and fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, reason, mind, and language. So when you see the theories, one after another, we have many theories in your syllabus, right? There are plenty of theories available, but we are going to focus only the theories which you have in your syllabus. The first one is phenomenological criticism, and the second unit is reader response, and third is structuralism and post-structuralism, and fourth one is sociological discourse, and the fifth one is postmodernism. Right? These are the five units you have in your syllabus. That is critical theory since 1965. So, when you see this philosophy, the study of general and fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, reason, mind, and language. So, when you see all these theories, you can relate all these theories into very word of these things, right? When you see existence, you can connect this with existentialism, right? Knowledge and values, you can connect with sociological theory, right? Reason, mind, you can connect with the realism and idealism. And language, you can connect this with structuralism and post-structuralism. And then you can see modernism, all those things blended with modernism and postmodernism. So when you understand what is this, then you can study each segment in a different category or different theories related to that very word, right? Such questions are often posed as problems to be studied or resolved. So when you want to understand the whole thing, or when you want to understand the meaning of existence, the meaning of life, right, it is very, very essential to study the problems or how these problems are resolved, right? You have to understand the problems to resolve those problems, which means that you have to understand what is the problem to give a solution. That is what here we are going to see, which means that when you understand this thing, it is very easy for you to understand the theory itself. Three main areas of philosophy. What are those three areas? Metaphysics, epistemology, and axiology. These are the three main branches, main areas of philosophy. So anything when you want to study in philosophy, or when you want to relate with your critical theory or criticism, then you are absolutely, connect with these three branches, right? Metaphysics, epistemology, and axiology, right? We are going to see all these three terms, overview of these three terms, later. First, we have to understand the characteristics of philosophy. It is the oldest and original discipline of thoughts, right? So philosophy is not something new or evolved recently. It's very old. We start from Aristotle, right? So BC itself, it's the oldest and original discipline of thought. So everything we're going to study about thoughts, mind, right? So it is a search for truth and reality. That is what? Search for truth, that absolute truth or reality. And it is a systematic approach showing connections between different parts of beliefs or thought system. It's like a mathematics, right? Systematic approach. It is a systematic approach showing connection between different parts. No, philosophy is like mathematical problems, right? It apparently gives you clear picture of the connection between different parts. What between different parts? Beliefs or thought system, right? So this is a very systematic approach. So we can say it is the way of life, right? So you have to understand what is philosophy, love of wisdom, right? The very word, when you trace the origin of the word, it's from Greek, right? And there are three main branches of philosophy, that is metaphysics, epistemology, and axiology. And when you see the characteristics of philosophy, it's very old discipline of thoughts, right? And its main purpose is to search for truth and reality, and it is a systematic approach, right? Showing connections between different parts of beliefs and thought systems. We can simply say it's a way of life. Okay. Let's see the three main areas of philosophy. The first one is metaphysics. What is metaphysics? When you take the word, when you divide the word, meta means beyond, beyond physics, beyond physical, right? Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy concerned with the nature of existence, being, and the world. So it is arguably metaphysics is the foundation of philosophy, right? For existence, right? That is the very essential thing in our life. So this is the foundation of philosophy. So Aristotle originally split his metaphysics into three main sections, and these remain the main branches of metaphysics, right? So when you take the metaphysics, again, it splits into three divisions. Who has done that? Aristotle, he himself done, right? Three main sections. What are those three main sections? Ontology, theology, right? Universal science. What is ontology? The study of being and existence, including the definition and classification of entities, physical or mental, the nature of their properties, and the nature of change. So, existence, being and existence, that is what ontology. And then the natural theology. Theology, we know that study of God, right? Natural theology, the study of God, including the nature of religion and the world, existence of the divine, questions about the creation, and the various other religious or spiritual issues. So first one is ontology, study about, you can say, being, the things which we can see, all right? The second thing is theology. Theology, the things which we feel, that is God, about the nature of religion, existence of divine power, that is theology. And then universal science, the study of first principle of logic, that is reasoning, right? Such as the law of non-contradiction. So three things about human being, that is ontology, and about divine power, that is theology. Third one is universal science, that is logic and reasoning, right? So when we see philosophy, we have three main areas. What are those? Metaphysics, epistemology, and axiology. So when we take metaphysics, again, it has three main sections. What are those? Ontology, natural theology, and universal science. Who has done these splits? Aristotle himself done this. Okay, so what is ontology? Being, study of being or existence. And what is theology? A study of God or study of divine, existence of the divine. And what is universal science? That is study of logic and reasoning. So metaphysics has been attacked at different times in history, right? So anything, we know that if you want to say some concept, if you want to uh, say something new to the world, it's not that thing that immediately people will accept and appreciate. No, not at all, right? There are plenty of people agree, and the similar way there are plenty of people disagree, right? Always it has both positives and negatives. So when these thoughts explode, the same thing happened. Metaphysics has been attacked at different times in history as being futile and overly vague, particularly by David Hume, Immanuel Kant, and A.J. Ayer. So they have given here three names, those who has been attacked, right? It may be more useful to say that a metaphysical statement usually implies an idea about the world or the universe, which may seem reasonable but is ultimately not empirically verifiable, testable, or provable. So, actually, it is very, very difficult to make people understand. It is a very vague thing, right? When you study a lot more, you will understand what is it, right? Philosophy is something which goes beyond your knowledge level, which goes beyond your experience level, right? Because it requires a lot of knowledge to understand what is what. It requires a lot of experience to feel what is it, right? So phenomenology is something which is related to experience. Simply we can say that it is very, very difficult for you to say what is love. You can say for hours together to explain what is love, but it is very difficult to understand the explanation, whereas it is very difficult when someone is being in love. What is it? That experience make that person understand what is love. That is what phenomenology, right? We'll see later that now the second broad area of philosophy is epistemology, right? Epistemology is the study of the nature and scope of knowledge and justified belief. It analyzes the nature of knowledge and how it relates to similar notions such as truth, belief, and justification. It also deals with the means of production of knowledge as well as skepticism about different knowledge claims. It is essentially about issues having to do with the creation and dissemination of knowledge in particular areas of inquiry. So it is very, very, a broad term. It is very essential to understand what is it. You can read the definition multiple times to understand what is it, right? It is the study of nature and scope of knowledge, right? about studying about the scope of knowledge, or studying about the justified belief, right? It analyzes the nature of knowledge, right? Something which is, already uh, informed or instructed or propounded to the world to study about that knowledge. It relates to similar notions such as truth, belief, and justification. So we have to understand these notions: what is truth, what is belief, and what is justification. These terms are not synonymous. You have to understand what is what, as a separate term. It also deals with the means of production of knowledge. Means of production, right? That is how it has been produced. That you have to understand, as well as skepticism about different knowledge claims. So there are many things which are already being accepted by the world. They question all those things, right? Skepticism, for example, as people, long back, long centuries back, people accepted our universe, right? Earth is, flat. But later, the concept, entirely changed by the scientists, that it is not flat, it is spherical, right? So skepticism about different knowledge claims already been accepted by the world. They question those things, right? Like Da Vinci Code. It is essentially about issues having to do with the creation and dissemination of knowledge in particular areas of inquiry. So epistemology asks questions like, what is knowledge? So it's very simple question, very basic question, and a very difficult question to answer. They ask, what is knowledge? How is knowledge acquired? What do people know? What are the necessary and sufficient conditions of knowledge? So what is knowledge, and how do you consider people who are, they have knowledge of particular thing, and what is their benchmarking, right? What is its structure, and what are its limits? What makes justified beliefs justified, and how we are to understand the concept of justification, right? So these are the things that you have to answer when you study epistemology. So what is knowledge? The very basic question. Try to answer this question. Knowledge is the awareness and understanding of particular aspects of reality, right? Something is happening or something is happened. It is the first thing, that it is the awareness and understanding particular aspects of reality. To understand the reality, that is knowledge. There's a clear, lucid information gained through the process of reason applied to reality, right? It is the clear, lucid information gained through the process of reason applied to reality. So it is not that very easy to understand reality. To understand reality, we need to apply our reason, right? When we have some kind of rational thinking, only we can understand the reality. That is what knowledge is. So when we have to have that reason, we have to have knowledge, right? The traditional approach is that knowledge requires three necessary and sufficient conditions, so that knowledge can then be defined as justified true belief. Okay, so this is epistemology, right? The other one is, the other main branch of philosophy is axiology. So it is concerned with theories of value. Three major divisions of axiology is deontology. Ontology is study of being or study of existence, right? So this is deontology, or we can say morality. That is, what is right or and what is wrong, what is good and what is evil. That is deontology, right? That is morality. And what is the other thing? Ethics. What is right behavior? Ethics. This is the thing. You have to follow certain ethics. When you are in a classroom, you have to follow certain ethics. When you are in a meeting, you have to follow certain ethics. When you are in the exam hall, you have to follow certain ethics. Right behavior, right? And the third one is aesthetics. What is beautiful and ugly? How well, or how do you appreciate, right? This is what you are going to study in your phenomenological criticism. Aesthetics. What is aesthetics? Now, how you appreciate the thing. What is beautiful and ugly? Appreciation, that is aesthetics. Okay, so axiology talks about three things: concerned with theories of value, that is about right and wrong, about good and evil, right? And the other thing is ethics. What is ethics? What is the right behavior? That is ethics. And the third one is aesthetics. What is aesthetic? Taste, right? What is uh, beautiful and what is ugly, right? So these are the three major broad areas of philosophy. To understand these three broad areas, we need to understand certain things. The basic thing of what is knowledge, what is reason, these things. So when you understand these three broad areas of philosophy, then it is very easy for us to understand the theories which are given in your syllabus, right? There are theories for the rest of the units. We can easily understand the first unit, phenomenology. That theory also, it is very easy to understand. Only thing is, it is very vague. You need to give your utmost attention to understand what is what, right? You have to understand one more thing about idealism. So what is idealism? So idealism is that the people, idealists, believe that ideas are the only true reality. So the material world is characterized by change, instability, and uncertainty. Some ideas are enduring, right? So it is, we should be concerned primarily with a search for truth, right? So we have already seen philosophy. What are the things related with philosophy? The one important thing is truth, right? So since truth is perfect and eternal, it cannot be found in the world of matter, that is both imperfect and constantly changing. This is idealism, right? This is very, very important to understand. What we say, truth is a perfect thing, but we say that our world, the the universe which we live, is imperfect and constantly changing. So ultimately, one thing we understand, that perfect truth cannot be found in the materialistic world. So where is it then? Right? This is very, very important. So when we see the leaders of idealism, we can start from Socrates, right? Socrates from 4th BC, and Plato, right? And Saint Augustine, and Descartes, Berkeley, and then the 18th and 19th century philosopher Immanuel Kant, right? So when we see Socrates, we can uh, consider Socrates the father of philosophy. Believed we learned through questioning, that is Socratic method. He believed that if you are questioning, then your knowledge is expanding, right? He when you see that, he didn't write anything. What we know of his views were written by his followers, most notably his disciple Plato. Okay, so when you see the principles of idealism, idealism believes in the universal mind. Idealism regards man as a spiritual being, and it believes that world of ideas and the values is more important than the world of matters, right? The one which we have physically exist, right? That is really, when you consider values and ideas comparatively more important than the world of matter. And then real knowledge is perceived in mind. What is real knowledge? What we perceive in our mind is real knowledge. Stress on the principle of unity of diversity, and then importance of personality development. So these are the very important essential points which we have to remember when you study about idealism, the principles of idealism, right? And the other concept later developed, right, transcendental idealism. We just to see, because when you want to study the phenomenological approach, it is very essential to understand what is idealism, what is realism, what is transcendental idealism, right? In the critique of pure reason, Immanuel Kant argues that space and time are merely formal features of how we perceive object. Perceptional experience is very, very important, right? Because the whole theory is based on experience, right? So perceptual experience is very, very important. Space and time are merely formal features of how we perceive objects, not things in themselves that exist independently of us, or properties or relations among them. Objects in space and time are said to be appearances. And he argues that we know nothing of substance about the things in themselves of which they are appearances. Kant calls this doctrine or set of doctrines transcendental idealism. And ever since the publication of the first edition of the Critique of Pure Reason in 1781, Kant's readers have wondered and debated what exactly transcendental idealism is, and have developed quite different interpretations. So that is very, very important, right? He talks about time and appearances. So objects in space and time are said to be appearances. That is very, very important. That is transcendental idealism, right? The set of doctrines are called transcendental idealism. That is what he talks about here. You can read a few lines about the philosophers, what I have mentioned, and you can read a little more about Immanuel Kant. Lived in the 18th and 19th century, early 19th century. He died in 1804. The greatest and most difficult problem to which a man can devote himself is the problem of education, right? Education should teach students how to think according to principles, moral laws, moral ideals, and moral imperatives. So, according to him, what is education? Is the education if an educated person can think according to the moral laws, moral ideas, and moral imperatives, then he is called, rightly called, as educated person, right? Education should develop these things. Enlightenment is the goal of education, right? So now the very classic example of idealist, now the idealist and the chair. To an idealist, the concept of chair is important. You could destroy all the chairs in the world, but they would still exist in the mind. The idea of a chair is the ultimate truth. For example, it is, it's not about the chair. You can keep any object, but the classic example given by the idealist is chair, right? It is very easy to remember. Now, when you have a chair, you can think about the chair. You can the chair which has which is made up of wooden chair, something like that. You can see the chair, existence of a chair, and then you can dismantle or destroy the chair. What would happen? You can destroy the chair, but still it is exists where? In your mind. The idea of chair is the ultimate truth. When you think a chair, you still remember how it looks. The idea of chair that appears in your mind. That is what idealists believe. The ideas are the very important thing. You can uh, destroy everything in physically. You can destroy everything, but it is very difficult the idea being destroyed. So here they talk about the idea of a chair. That is very, very important. So what is realism? Reality, knowledge, and value exist independent of the human mind. That is realism. So when you talk about idealism and transcendental idealism, then obviously you have to understand what is realism. Probably you would have known the term realism, right? We can simply say experimental study, science for the sake of science. So all the ideas when we talk about in our idealism must be subject to public verification. That is realism. Must be proven through scientific experimentation. For example, when we say that water has H2 plus O, we have to prove scientifically to understand. That is realism. So truth is derived from generalization. That is realism. Deductive reasoning. Truth is derived from the generalizations. So the leaders of realism, again, Aristotle and Francis Bacon, John Locke, or the people who are associated with the term realism. So this is very, very important. When we understand these terms, it is very easy for us to understand phenomenological criticism. Thank you. Let's see in another lecture.